I have not seen one single San Francisco 49er fan say that the 49ers should trade Brandon Aiyuk. And if they are out there, I guess I just haven't seen them. But I think that's why it's important to try to gain perspective and try to hear from people who have zero ties to the 49ers, understand ball, and just kind of giving it their thoughts and their perspective from the outside looking in. We're really close to it. We all love Brandon Aiyuk, and we want Brandon Aiyuk to stay, but it is interesting to hear from someone else who does not have the ties to the organization like 49er fans do. So Bucky Brooks, and if you don't know Bucky Brooks, he is an integral part of the kind of scouting community, especially on the media side of scouting. He works with Daniel Jeremiah and the NFL Network, and they're totally tapped in with Elite 11 and the NFL Combine and all those types of things. He is an evaluator. That's what he does. He gets paid to evaluate football players. So he went on 95.7 The Game with Willard and Dibbs to discuss none other than Brandon Aiyuk and what he believes the San Francisco 49ers should do. And he doesn't think that the 49ers should pay Brandon Aiyuk right now. And I know you hear that and you're like, oh, how dare he? Listen to what he has to say. Listen to his explanation, and we're going to react to it on the other side.
I had charts, I had stats, I had DVOA and EPA, Bucky, but I'm going to put that aside because I like talking to a guy who watches the tape. But my question for you is, how many teams can really play that press man, and how many teams actually do play the man-to-man that we saw from Kansas City in the Super Bowl?
All right. Well, I mean, the teams that they play, like the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs, they play man-to-man. So, like, if you're the 49ers, you're not measuring yourself against the bottom feeders. You're not measuring yourself against the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons and some of those teams. It's the best of the best. So what you have to do is figure out, okay, if we match up against those elite teams that have elite corners, can our guys on the outside win and win consistently? Right now, we can look at numbers. We can look at where they played. They haven't been able to do it. So the challenge is to Aiyuk, and guys took Aiyuk out of it, but Samuel, can he win versus man-to-man? I'm saying that's the number one thing. That'll be the question when it comes down to paying them and all of those stuff. If they're going to continue to run the offense back the way that they run it, those guys have to win man-to-man coverage because everyone is going to copy what the Browns did, they're going to copy what the Chiefs did, and they're going to challenge those guys to win man-on-man coverage.
Okay, so Bucky, I'm gonna put thoughts in your head then. What you're telling me is that you can't put $50 million into these two players based on the skill set that they've shown, at least so far. So if that's the case, what would you do?
Well, I don't know if you have to do anything right now with Brandon Aiyuk. Like, I know there's a rush, but, like, he still has the fifth-year option to play on, right? I think he still has the fifth-year option before he's not free. So what you do is you make him play on the option, and then eventually you figure it out. Because let's be honest, after next year, they're going to have to reset the entire program. Because after next year, they're going to have to pay the quarterback if the quarterback continues to play like that. So once you pay the quarterback, you can't pay everybody else. And so that's the time where you have to reset the entire team.
Yeah, but Bucky, he's not showing up without a new deal.
Okay, you know what happens? See,
yeah,
man, this is why. Because, Mark, you're
right.
so nice. But guess what? The CBA has things in it where if he doesn't show up, it would be very punitive to his pocketbook.
I understand.
So we can sit here and act like that, and we can play tough like, no, we got to pay him or he won't show up. If you're not in a situation where you can pay everybody, you just have to hold off and you got to wait and see because you're going to have to make a determination. It's going to be Debo or Brandon Aiyuk because when you pay the quarterback, because Brock is not going to pay for less than $1 million in his fourth year. You're going to have to pay him. And so when he gets up into that $40, $50 million range, somebody has to suffer. So I don't know if I could pay him right now because you still got others unless you're going to cut Eric Armstead, reduce his number down. So then you have Brandon Aiyuk. So all of that stuff plays with it.
So the one thing that he did say in regards to Brandon Aiyuk and what they potentially could do that is true is the fact that Brandon Aiyuk is not an unrestricted free agent. He is still playing on his rookie deal. Because he was a first-round draft pick, the 49ers have the opportunity to pick up his fifth-year option, which keeps him under team control for one more year. And I think that's where the problem lies. The problem lies is that he would be getting paid $14 million for next year. And that is severely underpaid by wide receiver standards. For example, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had similar production numbers outside of having way more targets and way more catches than BA. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is looking for 25 to 30 million per year on average. So to give you kind of a perspective, playing on a $14 million deal next year is a severe underpay, especially for being a second team All-Pro and what Brandon Aiyuk was able to do. So two things can be true. Brandon Aiyuk absolutely deserves a payday. He's earned it. He's done the work. He put his nose down and he did what was asked of him. And nothing can be more a better example of that than his blocking abilities. And again, I had Brandon Aiyuk on the channel. I asked him point blank, when did you start blocking like this? And he's like, in the NFL. I didn't block like that in high school, JUCO, at ASU. I learned how to block in the NFL. And so that part of his game that we love so much was developed here in San Francisco. And it's one of the reasons why he is a phenomenal player and a phenomenal guy to have on the squad. So again, I understand what Bucky is saying is if push comes to shove, the team is in control at the end of the day. But on the other side of it, it's like, man, you got to do right by your guy who has withstood some downs and elevated his game and elevated himself as a result. And how are you just going to force this guy to play on a contract that he deserves better? Now, again, you could say the same thing for Brock Purdy, but they actually can't give him a contract extension. It's not allowed because he was by the CBA in the draft pick and where he was selected. He can't get an extension. If he was an undrafted free agent, he could, but he can't because he was a draft pick. So it's a tough situation because both things are true. The 49ers could say, we'll revisit this next year. We're not going to talk about it right now. And BA could say, trade me then. If we're not going to have a serious conversation about giving me a deserved raise, then let's look at the other options. So it's a tough spot to be in, I think, for both sides. I think it makes it challenging. And again, all the other reasons that Bucky lists, Debo's getting paid. You have all the other weapons getting paid. You can't pay everyone. The quarterbacks come, there's so many layers to this. But again, at the end of the day, the 49ers are looking out for the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk's looking out for Brandon Aiyuk. And we'll see where that leads. But again, it just makes it a tough situation. So I don't anticipate this really smoothing out anytime soon. I think it's going to be a very fascinating situation to see how it all plays out. But what did you think of what Bucky Brooks had to say? What do you think of kind of like the double standard of it all? And just the whole thing. And I'll link the entire interview with Bucky Brooks. He says a lot more in the description below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.